Okay, let's paint the picture here. You have to imagine the energy in the room. It's the launch of Unrivaled.
Right.
And this isn't just another basketball game. This is supposed to be the new high-octane 3-on-3 showcase. It's designed to keep the best players in the world playing right here, domestically during the off-season.
The hype is absolutely there. The money is there.
It feels like a new era.
It's arguably the most significant business development in women's basketball in years. I mean, the whole premise is to create a league so lucrative, so competitive, that superstars like Breanna Stewart don't have to go overseas.
To Russia or Turkey or wherever to make their money.
Exactly.
So the stage is set for this massive celebration of the sport. And then player introductions start. The spotlight hits Breanna Stewart, WNBA MVP, an absolute legend of the game, and actually a co-founder of this very league. But she's not doing a layup line. She's not waving to the crowd. She's just standing there, head down, in the spotlight. And she's holding a sign.
And just to be super clear for everyone listening, that sign didn't say, "Go Unrivaled."
No, not at all. It read, "Abolish IC," as in Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, typically in sports media, you get a highlight reel, you get stats, but today we are into a very, very different kind of reaction.
Yeah, we are looking at a transcript from the Bendo podcast.
And let me tell you, having gone through this, this is not a polite press release from the league office.
Far from it. This source offers a raw, unfiltered, and deeply critical reaction to that moment.
Right.
And I think we need to set the table here. Our mission today isn't to debate immigration policy. We are not here to say whether this sign was right or wrong.
Or whether IC is good or bad. Yeah, we're leaving the actual politics at the door. We are looking at the reaction to the politics.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack the argument that's presented in this source material. Because the Bendo podcast is making a very specific, very loud contention that by allowing this collision of sports and political expression, the league is committing what they call business suicide.
They do not mince words. They argue that the WNBA and Unrivaled are branding themselves as activist leagues first and basketball leagues second.
And the crux of their argument, and this is where it gets really sticky, is about the fans.
Specifically the new fans, the millions of people who just tuned in because of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon.
That is the tension we need to explore today. It's this clash between what the source sees as the league's core identity versus its potential for mass appeal. So let's try to navigate through the heat of this source and see what the argument actually is.
All right, let's get into it. So segment 1, the whole activist league identity. The source opens up, and you might expect them to be shocked by Breanna Stewart's protest. It's opening night, the cameras are rolling. I mean, surely this is a surprise.
But the host of the Bendo podcast, not shocked at all.
Not in the slightest.
No, he says it was predictable. And that is a key part of his argument. He's saying this isn't a glitch in the system.
He says it is the system.
Exactly. He calls the WNBA, and by extension, Unrivaled, an activist basketball league. He argues that activism is just. It's baked into the DNA of the whole organization.
Yeah, he says, and I'm quoting here, "This is what the WNBA always was and always will be." Which is interesting because usually businesses try to avoid being predictable in a controversial way.
But he sees it as their standard operating procedure. And to prove this pattern, the source just starts rattling off a list of historical grievances. It's almost like he's building a case file for you.
He is. He cites specific moments to establish this pattern. He brings up previous friction between players and owners regarding Black Lives Matter.
Right, claiming the league pushes out owners who refuse to, quote, buy into the movement. So he views the league not as a neutral ground, but as an organization that enforces a kind of ideological compliance.
He also specifically calls out Sue Bird and Breonna Turner. And this is something I hadn't looked at in a while, but he brings it up as if it's fresh evidence.
Right. He points to them advocating for men playing in women's sports. He's referring to the debates around transgender inclusion as evidence of the league's progressive stance. He uses this to paint a picture of a league that is, far to the left of the average sports fan.
And then he mentions a specific, highly charged incident involving Natasha Cloud. This one seemed to really, really get under the source's skin.
Yes. The source claims Natasha Cloud was doing backflips and cheering about news related to the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, again, we're analyzing the source's perception here.
Right.
But regardless of the specifics, look at why he lists it. He's using these examples to define the league's culture. In his view, the WNBA isn't defined by the pick and roll.
Or the three-point percentage.
It's defined by its insistence on meeting at the crossroads of politics and sports.
That's a great phrase, the crossroads. But usually a crossroads implies you can go left or you can go right.
And for this source, that crossroads is a dead end. He argues the league demands conformity. He says, quote, "They think that everybody should think like them, talk like them, walk like them."
He perceives an arrogance there, a belief that the league's moral stance is the only acceptable one.
And that creates a huge barrier to entry for anyone who happens to think differently.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, or maybe the Caitlin Clark factor. Because you just cannot talk about the WNBA right now without talking about the massive surge in viewership she brought in.
And the source spends a lot of time on her.
A lot.
And this is where his argument becomes this theory about audience segmentation. He draws a really sharp line in the sand between old fans and new fans.
It's the Caitlin Clark wedge.
Exactly. The source argues that Caitlin Clark, or CC as he calls her, is the primary, maybe the only reason for this recent explosion in attention. But here is the critical distinction he makes.
What's that?
He positions Caitlin Clark as a figure of basketball, not politics.
That's a fascinating distinction because she plays in the same league. But he says explicitly, when we watch Caitlin Clark, we don't need to be reminded of political stuff going on in the country.
He sees her as a safe haven from the activism.
It's projection to an extent. He's projecting his own desire for a non-political sports experience onto her.
And then, according to the source, you have the rest of the league. He argues that while CC brings people to the table, the league's culture, exemplified by Breanna Stewart's sign, is what drives them away.
He claims that these new viewers, the ones who just want to watch hoops, they feel alienated.
The rhetoric he uses is really strong here. He says the league is isolating and alienating their new fan base.
And then he drops this line, which, it really stuck with me. He says Caitlin Clark is the last thing holding us all on.
That is such a precarious position for a business, if it's true.
Yeah.
The source is suggesting the league's entire growth strategy is hinged on one player who represents a non-political product.
While the rest of the institution is actively selling a political product that the new customers don't want.
It creates this massive friction.
It's like, imagine you go to a restaurant because you heard the steak is amazing. You sit down, you order it, but before they serve it, the waiter has to read you a manifesto.
Right.
You might stay for the steak once, but are you coming back next week?
That is exactly the dynamic the source is describing. He believes the new fan is there for the basketball product, pure and simple. And every time the activism product gets prioritized, it chips away at their patience.
And he thinks that friction is completely unsustainable. He's basically saying, you invited us in to watch basketball, and now you're lecturing us on immigration.
And to prove that this alienation is really happening, the source doesn't just offer his own opinion. He starts reading comments.
Ah, the comment section.
And this is where we get into the business of backlash.
The Wild West of the internet. Usually I say never read the comments, but in this case, the comments are the story.
They are. In this context, the source uses these comments as data points. He wants to show he's not alone in this feeling. He is aggregating the voice of the new fan he claims is being driven away.
And these comments are, well, they're brutal. I'm just going to read a few to give you a sense of the temperature here. One comment says, simply, shut up and dribble. A classic.
It is the standard rebuttal to athlete activism. It's dismissive, yes, but it reflects a very real consumer demand, which is, I pay you to entertain me, not to challenge me.
Another one references Michael Jordan saying, Republicans buy sneakers as well. Well, that's a famous business line.
It implies that commerce should be neutral to maximize profit. It's a call for what you might call capitalist neutrality. The idea that if you want to sell to everyone, you can't offend anyone.
Then it gets more conspiratorial. One comment claims Soros money finally made it to them, which, implies there's some dark funding behind the activism.
And then there are the direct boycotts.
Yeah. Done with Unrivaled. I'm about done with any company that supports Unrivaled. You made a choice. It leads me to make choices to walk away.
This is what the source categorizes as business suicide.
Business suicide. That's a heavy phrase.
It is. And the argument here is purely economic. The source claims that by engaging in this overt activism, The league is voluntarily shrinking its potential market.
Right. If you take a polarizing stance, you are, by definition, excluding the people who disagree with you.
And if the goal is mass appeal, if the goal is to convert those millions of casual Caitlin Clark observers into lifelong fans, the source argues this is the worst possible strategy.
It's the get woke, go broke argument, just applied specifically to women's basketball.
Correct. And he points out this interesting paradox of attention. He knows that before this controversy, before the abolish ICE sign Unrivaled, wasn't really dominating the media cycle in his circles.
Right. He says after not being talked about in the media since Unrivaled started, now they're going to get talked about.
But he argues it's for all the wrong reasons. It's visibility, sure. But it's negative visibility. It's not, look at this amazing crossover. It's, look at this political controversy.
And in the source's view, that doesn't sell tickets to the general public. It only appeals to the niche.
It frames the league as a political battleground rather than an entertainment product.
So if this is business suicide, why do they do it? Does the source think they'll ever change? I mean, usually, money talks, right? If the ratings dip, do they pull back?
No. And this is the ultimatum segment of our discussion. The source is convinced this dynamic is permanent. He says explicitly, that will never happen, meaning the league will never sign deals prohibiting activism.
He seems to think the players and the owners are they're too far gone, like too entrenched in this culture.
He believes the commitment to the cause outweighs the commitment to business expansion, at least in that direction. He thinks the owners wouldn't even dare to offer a contract that said no politics because the player power is too strong.
Or because the owners themselves agree with this stance.
Right. So he presents a stark reality for the viewer. Since the league won't change, the consumer only has one lever of power left.
The remote control.
Exactly. Watch or don't watch. It's the ultimate free market ultimatum. He tells his listeners that if they disagree with the message, their only recourse is to turn it off. He's essentially giving permission to his audience to check out.
But here's the thing that I found really fascinating. He admits that there are people who love this. He isn't saying everyone hates it.
Yes, and that's the echo chamber effect.
He says, a lot of the old WNBA fans, they agree with this. They champion this. Go, Breanna, go.
This is a crucial insight from the source. He recognizes that the league does have a base. The old fans, as he calls them. And this base reinforces the activism.
Yeah, when Breanna Stewart holds that sign, she gets applause from that core community. She feels supported, she goes on social media, sees praise from her peers and the diehard fans.
She's not hearing the shut up and dribble guys in the stadium.
No, she's hearing her people.
Exactly. It creates a self-reinforcing loop. The players do the activism, the core fans cheer, the players feel validated to do more. But the source's argument is that this loop is a closed circuit. It excludes the dissenting voices.
The Bendo listeners, the conservative viewers, the new fans who just want basketball.
Right. It makes the old fans happy, but it puts up a wall against the new fans.
So the league becomes more of a club for people who agree with the politics rather than a sports league for everyone.
That is his assessment, and his outlook for the future is grim. He predicts that without Caitlin Clark holding up the tent, the whole thing just collapses. He says without CC, it's, well, he uses strong language to say it's over.
He really thinks she's the load-bearing wall for the whole sport right now.
He does. He believes that if the new fans are forced to choose between the politics they dislike and the player they like, eventually they will walk away.
Or if she were to leave or become political in a way they didn't like, the exodus would be massive.
It's a pretty dark prophecy for the league. He's basically saying, you have a golden ticket with this new popularity, and you are ripping it up to hold a protest sign.
That sums up his position perfectly. He sees it as a squandered opportunity, a choice to prioritize ideology over expansion.
Okay, let's take a step back and synthesize this. We have a league, Unrivaled, trying to capitalize on a massive boom in women's sports.
We have a superstar, Breanna Stewart, using her platform to make a very visible political statement.
And we have a source, the Bendo podcast, arguing that this is the moment the league drove off a cliff.
It's a case study in the modern sports landscape. The shut up and dribble mentality is clearly still very present in a segment of the audience. This source is proof of that.
But it also highlights the disconnect between the player's reality and this specific fan segment's reality.
And it highlights how fragile this new fandom might be. If the source is right, there are millions of people watching who are just one abolish ICE sign away from changing the channel forever.
It highlights the extreme polarization of consumption. We are entering an era, or maybe we're already deep in it, where fandom is conditional.
Conditional on political alignment. The source is saying, I can't buy your product if I don't buy your politics.
Which is wild, right? I mean, I don't check the political donations of my plumber before he fixes my sink.
Right, I don't check the voting record of the guy making my sandwich. But in sports, because it's entertainment and identity, it matters.
It matters immensely.
Yeah.
And the WNBA has always been at the forefront of social justice. They've never shied away from it. The difference now is the scale of the audience.
When you go from a niche audience that largely agrees with you to a mass audience that contains a lot of people who don't, that friction is inevitable.
That is the growing pain the league is experiencing. And that's what we are seeing here. The friction is the heat. The source feels betrayed by the product he wants to consume.
He feels a breach of contract. I give you my attention and money, you give me escape.
And the league broke that contract, in his eyes.
So we've unpacked the source's argument, the anger, the business theory, the fear for the future. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought.
Go on.
The source claims that politics ruins the entertainment value of sports. They want to escape the real world. They want to just watch the game.
Right. That's the core plea. Keep the real world out of my game.
But think about the source material we just analyzed. This podcast host and the commenters he read, their reaction to the sign was just as loud, just as heated, and just as political as the sign itself.
That is a fascinating paradox.
They aren't ignoring it. They are engaging with it fiercely. So the question is, has the audience, the one demanding everyone just shut up and dribble, actually become just as political as the activist they're criticizing?
Are they actually part of the political theater they claim to hate? That is the question. When does the reaction to the protest become a protest of its own?
And can you ever really separate the two in today's climate? Something to think about the next time you see a headline like this.
That's it from the Unrivaled Controversy. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.